Hey guys, good morning. I wanted to go live because I wanted to give you some little bit of background about why I'm doing this. And I wanted to help you in these first few days, which can really be challenging. So for those of you that don't know me, I worked in healthcare for a very long time, for the last 14 years of my life. And that vantage and visibility to disease in the ICU really helped me become super healthy about 10 years ago. Hey Mitchell, how are you? Good morning. So I started to research food and the food culture and just became super passionate about health and wellness. And so here I was in the ICU working and taking care of the sickest people and trying to keep them alive with lots of drugs and machines. And then here I was on this side living this kind of amazing, bountiful, healthy lifestyle for the most part. And it's actually what brought us to Serenbe, because we were here looking for the farm and for a place that had local organic food. And I thought we were pretty healthy. So someone introduced me, every night, we were actually vegetarians before we started the Whole30 for the most part. And so the Whole30 was really difficult for us. Mitchell says, hey, I worked at CHOA in the ER. Yes, you can relate. Yeah, I worked in the ICU at Emory and many other places for the last 14 years. So as a nurse practitioner. So we were almost vegetarians basically before we started the Whole30. And I started the Whole30 a couple times and failed. I did it by myself. I hadn't read the book fully. And one of my friends, who's also a health and wellness guru and a nurse, said, you've got to read the book, Eliza, and you've got to be prepared for this when you do it. So I was very accustomed to making lots of vegetables. We were eating a very plant-based diet, and every night we had this lovely loaf of organic wheat with our dinner. And for the most part, we thought we were pretty healthy. Benton, my husband, suffered from severe allergies his entire life to the point that he had polyps. He actually had such horrible breathing issues. He had to wear mouth guards and had to have his whole mouth fixed. It created all kinds of problems. And he dealt with this his entire life. And it was just kind of a natural thing for us that he was on Flonase and Zyrtec and all kinds of different medications for his issues. And he had really high cholesterol. So even in our late 20s, Benton had high cholesterol. And at the time I was working in the ICU, and I was like, listen, you got to cut out all fatty foods. I went by the kind of standard way that I was trained in medicine and nursing about how you reduce your cholesterol, which now we know has been debunked. And I said, you'll probably be on a statin medication by the time you're 40, because this increases your risk of heart disease and stroke and all these horrible diseases that cause terrible morbidity. And we could do nothing for almost 8 years to get his cholesterol normal, especially his LDL, which was the bad cholesterol. So we started Whole30. This was, I think it's been almost 2 years ago that we did it the first time. And Benton actually had his annual cholesterol screening the week right after Whole30. And we started reincorporating meats, which was very difficult for me because I didn't like to eat a lot of meat. I still don't eat a lot of meat. Maybe once or twice a week is the norm for me. And so we did Whole30 and we stuck to it, and it was very difficult for us the first couple weeks. Well, Benton went to follow up with his health screening the week after the Whole30 was finished, and his cholesterol had dropped 60 points. And it was normal. The LDL was normal for the first time that I had ever known him. And I was like, I cannot believe this. This is insane. We've been eating all this meat. You've been eating red meat. How is this possible? You've been eating all these fats, lots of fats. And it really caused me to question everything I had learned in school about nutrition. So I started to take a much deeper dive into nutrition and health and the foods that we put in our body, not just about related to plant-based, nutrient-based food, but around, how much meat is good, how much is too much, things like that. So I'm so happy to report that 2 years later, we live very near Whole30-ish. We do eat non-gluten grains, but when we reintroduced gluten, and I'm gonna talk to you guys really quick in this video about why this is not a diet and how we're gonna go through the reintroduction process. But I want to tell you that, yeah, phytic acid with some of the beans and things like that definitely may not be our friend, but that's a whole different food group. So, so we reintroduced, and when we got to the last part of the reintroduction, it was gluten-containing grains. And for the first time on the Whole30, and after doing a 3-day bambucha cleanse, Benton had done that, he was like, I don't know what's happening, but I can breathe through my nose. This is amazing. And we had already kind of had him on an essential oil regimen to get him off some of his other medications for allergies. So that had been working great, but it was something he still had to do every day. And then after the Whole30, he could breathe through his nose again. And he was like, I can smell better. This is crazy. So we didn't even know why that was until we started doing the reintroduction part. So when we reintroduced gluten-containing grains into our family, Benton started having extreme congestion. He started to have clear drainage out of his nose. And I actually started to have some depressive-like symptoms. And I reintroduced it like 4 different times just to do my own experiment with myself to see, is this really it? Is it really gluten? And what's the deal? Like, wheat is really not bad for us, and it actually has some things that are super healthy for us. So what's the problem? So I went on my journey to kind of try and understand what has been done to wheat in this country. And I'll go ahead and recommend this book as a follow-up for you guys. It's called Wheat Belly. It's written by a cardiologist, Dr. William Davis, and he goes down and he breaks down the science of what American hybridization of wheat has done to the genetic structure of wheat, and why for some of us it can be inflammatory for us, and why he thinks that this is the reason why almost half of America now is obese, and the rates of diabetes have been skyrocketing. And so this is a really incredible read after the Whole30. If you reintroduce gluten-containing grains and you're still having some problems and you notice some terrible side effects, I would encourage you to read this and really understand the why behind it. So that's kind of our journey with Whole30. And of course, after quitting my job in the healthcare field and starting a business just based around natural wellness related to essential oils and health and nutrition, I really just thought it would be fun to do a Whole30 reset. We call it a reset, not a diet, and to do it as a community. So that's why I did this group. That's why I wanted to have a community. For me, community is so important in my life. It just enriches my life in so many ways. And I feel like if we support each other, it's just so much easier to get through it. So that's kind of our journey, our why, our story, and so many people in this group are very well versed in Whole30, and you'll see them post a lot of good content. Sarah Payton is an incredibly amazing nutrition, holistic person who understands nutrition a lot, and she has a lot to offer, and she'll be sharing a lot here. So let's talk really quick about reintroduction, because some of you guys are suffering from the hangover phase, and this is actually called the carb flu. So if you feel like you have the flu, that's completely normal. Sorry. And I really encourage you to use your essential oils to kind of get through this really tough period. Peppermint, wild orange, drinking grapefruit in your water are really great things, especially for head tension. Peppermint and frankincense are incredible for that. If you guys are unfamiliar with essential oils, please reach out to me and private message me. I can bring you some things to try and get you through this period. But I want you to understand that on the other side of this, probably week 2 to 3, is when you're really going to start to notice some positive side effects. I will prepare you for week 2 that you may experience some digestive upset. Okay, so we have a mucus lining in our intestinal tract. And as we change some of the foods that we put into it, as we're putting more high fiber foods into it and you're eating more vegetables and fruit, you're definitely going to have some changes in your digestion. And also too, as you start to change the inflammation, reduce the inflammation, because some of the foods that we eat on a regular basis, like sugars and these very dense carbohydrates, can be inflammatory for us. You will notice that thick mucus lining sometimes starts to shed, and you have some digestive changes. So just prepare yourself for that. Some people get bloated during this phase and they feel like they're gaining weight. A very common response I hear on Whole30 is, I'm eating so much fat, fat. I'm eating actually more food and nuts, and I feel like I'm going to gain weight. Yeah, I mean, if you eat a bag of cashews every day, you are probably not going to lose weight. But in the beginning, I just want to encourage you, you're going to be more snacky because you're used to doing that and your body is in that carb flu. So once week 2 and 3 come out, you're going to have more control over those cravings. Some people even start to have dreams about foods, and that just indicates that you have a strong psychological addiction to some of the foods that you're eating, okay? So this is a reset for your body, getting it back to a place where we don't have those psychological addictions related to food, and that we just are putting nutrient-based food into our body. So back to the reintroduction. So after 30 days, we're going to do a guided reintroduction, okay? And this is very simple and it doesn't last long. So on the first day of the reintroduction after Whole30, we're going to reintroduce legumes. Now, people always ask me, why legumes? Why did they take legumes out of the Whole30? I thought they were a super great source of protein and carbohydrates, and they are. But Mitchell mentioned phytic acid or phytate. And so sometimes when beans are not cooked properly, they have a certain enzyme that they release, and it can actually cause digestive upset. So for some people, legumes are actually very challenging. Lentils, beans, things like that. But for most of us, they're going to be fine. So when we start the reintroduction process, day 1 through day 4, remember, we can only reintroduce one thing at a time because you have to have that time to assess whether your body is responding well to it. Yes, unsprouted grains, Mitchell says. That's why soaking is always important. You don't need to soak quinoa. There's a whole nother reason why quinoa gives you digestive upset, and we can talk about that later. So we're going to reintroduce legumes, beans, day 1 through day 4. And you're just going to do also the Whole30. You continue as you've done, but we're going to reintroduce legumes, okay? And so you're just going to assess and see how you feel for those 4 days. And if you feel great, if you feel fine, that usually means that legumes are not a problem for you, okay? And then on day 7, day 4, we're going to reintroduce non-gluten grains, okay? So that's things like quinoa. I mean, quinoa is not really a grain, it's a seed. But anything that doesn't have gluten in it, so gluten-free oats, rice, corn. I don't love corn, period, just because it spikes the blood sugar, but that's a whole different story. So all these non-gluten grains that do not have the gluten protein in them, okay? And so we'll walk through that together through days 4 through 7, and you're just gonna assess and see how your body feels. And this will feel very good to you because it's some of those denser carbohydrates that we've been missing. And then day 7 through day 10, we're gonna reintroduce dairy. And this is when things get a little tricky. Because a lot of people don't realize, I didn't realize that I actually had some issues with dairy. I used to eat cheese all the time, and I was always struggling kind of to keep my skin clear, and with lethargy in the afternoon. And I really found that cheese actually was the culprit when I had skin issues and my afternoon lethargy. And so actually, I used to eat cheese all the time. I was addicted to it. And I really have not a difficult time saying no to it now, just because I eliminated it and got rid of that kind of craving. Also, cheese has something in it called casomorphones, most dairy-based cheese, cow-based milk cheese, which are morphine-like substances, which actually affect our gut motility and can affect the way that we feel. So dairy is going to be one of those ones that is either going to really trigger you, or you may not have an issue with it. Now, we do sometimes eat cheeses now that are sheep milk-based. We love manchegos and things like that. So we'll talk about that in the reintroduction piece. But that's day 7 through 10 of the reintroduction. And then, that's day 4 through 7. And then 7 through 10, we're going to reintroduce gluten-based grains, okay? And this is where you may have to reintroduce a couple times. Now, we reintroduced and we both felt horrible, like horrible. We felt like we were dying. And I was like, this cannot be it. This just can't be it. And we reintroduced a couple times. We went back to Whole30 for a couple days, and then we reintroduced a couple times, and sure enough, we felt the same each time. So this is really just about discovery for you. It's about discovery. Every individual is different. As I study so much about nutrition now all the time, there is not one diet out there that is meant for everyone. I do not believe that there is one set diet for every single person. I think that every individual has has to go out there and do their own discovery and assess what's right for their body based on the responses. And the only way that you can do that is by eliminating things for 30 days, letting your gut heal, letting your psychological addictions be removed, and then reintroducing wholesome food. And I can tell you this, we go to dinner and they pass the bread, I'm not even interested in it anymore. So to have that empowerment over the things that I put in my body, it's just super, super powerful for you. And it literally can be the thing that pivots you into a new direction of health and wellness. So I'm excited to be with you guys on this journey. I hope this video helps you, just kind of give you some background to my inspiration for this group. I love to do Whole30 resets once or twice a year. So I'm always happy to kind of help with a community group for that. I love everything that you guys are posting. It's so much more fun this time. I've never done it in this forum, and it's actually easy because I'm so excited to look and get ideas for recipes on what you guys have made, and just to support each other through the process. So thank you so much for joining us, and you guys stick with it. By next week, you're going to be in kind of a habit and things are going to get better. So hang in there. The hardest thing for me is wine. I miss my wine definitely, and love wine. It's not inflammatory for me. It makes me really happy. But hang in there, and we'll get through it together. So thanks, you guys. I hope you have a happy Thursday, and we'll see you soon.